Yeah, so, and just a lot of really cool, and we do a behind the scenes called Crescendo. It's a new video that got released today. It's sort of a making of Gears of War that we showed for the first time in the panel there too. So, and our cast was there. We announced Isaiah Mustafa, the Old Spice guy, is in the game as a voice character.
That's right. A couple of my coworkers got pretty excited about that. He's a big hitter on the office. Yeah.
I can imagine. Shirt on or shirt off? I'm assuming shirt off.
I don't think he wears shirts, does he? They're just there to be,
exactly,
to come off.
Exactly.
Very cool. All right, so you had the panel, and now. Last night we checked the game out during our Tonight on the Spot broadcast,
right.
And you were shown, and people were sitting down to play Horde 2.0.
Right.
I muffled that up a little bit earlier in the show. Horde 2.0. You heard it here.
Right.
And so it's different from Horde in that there were a lot of you sort of earn money as you go through each wave, and then purchase defenses and barricades and emplacements.
Yeah.
How was that? You guys infused that in. Like, what kind of experience are you trying to create there?
Well, it was really looking at how people played the game. So we said, okay, we want to make this game a little bit more. We want more variety, more depth, a little persistence in your experience, but we didn't want to make it too complex. And so we said, well, how are people playing it now? And actually, people were already building bases. Like when you go onto Blood Drive, you go in the grenade room, and people are planting shields at the doors and planting grenades at the doors and trying to hold off the enemy. And that really is that sort of defensive tactic is the way people are playing. And we're like, how can we enable that? Like, what can we do to help people create those kinds of bases? And so that's where we came up with fortifications, where you can put down barriers, and you can put in decoys, and you can build turrets, and you can build automated sentries, and all this stuff to help you kind of establish this base to take on the 50 waves. And people wanted boss waves, so now every 10 wave is a real. You can fight berserkers and brumoks and all that kind of stuff in the game.
Yeah, and when they show up in those maps where you're just sort of used to seeing the locusts come at you, you get some big ones, but then this says boss wave, and you're like, okay, how big is this? Oh my god, that thing is huge.
Right. So they pretty well just tear up pretty much every fortification you built up to that point. So now the next 9 waves building again.
Building it back up.
But in variety, like this time, typically in Gears 2 it was 50 waves of a same sort of enemy site. Once you learned like what Wave 7 looked like, you knew what Wave 17 was going to look like, kind of thing. At least in mixture. But now we have like 5 different buckets of creatures with the Lambent and the Savage Locust and the regular Locust and all those getting mixed together. So every time you sit down to play, it's a different experience.
Yeah, and it was a fun surprise yesterday when I was just sort of gunning down this lurching monstrosity when all of a sudden he like sprouted up into the giant stalk enemy.
Yes, the Lambent, yeah.
Oh, we're doing that now, are we?
Exactly.
I'm going to continue shooting.
The Lambent were created to help deal with 4-player co-op. Like, because now the campaign has 4-player co-op, and when you have like 4-man guns from humans and they're fighting, you need to find something bigger to take them on. And so now we have this thing that can mutate and grow its arms out and its head up. It can shoot over cover. It can shoot multiple people at the same time. The Lambent were just created to deal with that 4-player co-op.
When you have 4 times as many or twice as many guns, leverage, you need something that's going to present a bigger challenge.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's why the Silverback is something that you saw earlier in the demo that's been playing. Is our mech suit is one of those things too that we said, oh, the Lambent are going to take it up a notch. We got to get the human technology to take it up a notch, and we created this exoskeleton suit with the chain guns on it to go around, stomp around, and blow away things.
Now you touched on something earlier that I really like about the sort of Gears of War 3 development process, and that was, you guys are observing how fans are playing Horde and then sort of adapting to work their strategy into your gameplay to help it inform it and help it expand it. You sort of, when we talked to you about the multiplayer beta, you sort of had that same philosophy. How do you feel has that been different for Gears of War 3 as opposed to previous? Have you had more time to do it because you guys are now, coming in September, you've had a little more breathing room? Yeah,
the extension from April to September has been huge from a polish perspective, being able to be a lot more receptive to a lot of those changes, because you have to get to a certain point where you say, okay, now I can actually you're getting feedback on things that you think are quote unquote done, and then you're actually getting, as opposed to in development. It's like when you eat raw cookie dough or whatever, you don't know if they're going to be good cookies or not, but now we can actually bake a few and you can eat them and tell me if they're good. It's a terrible metaphor, but anyway.
You can go with it. I'm getting a little hungry. But,
but no, it's been great to have that time, and I think we're also more mature about how you listen to the community. If you just listen to the forums alone, then you get some great feedback, but you also realize it's a vocal minority, and you have to think about the greater good as well. And so balancing what you're hearing on Twitter with when you play and what you see, what are the perceptions. And we also, with the beta, we got so much data. Like, we basically tracked every bullet that was fired, and so we can actually see, like, oh, you feel that way, but the data shows, like, people are like, oh, you completely hurt the Gnasher because you made the assault rifles more powerful, and you're like, nope, Gnasher's still the number one gun.
See how many people are getting killed with the Gnasher?
Exactly. So it's having that ability to try to find a balanced way of doing it.
And certainly that avid fan base, that all the people who love to play the game, who soak up every detail.
Right.
That's a great source of information for you guys and a great resource. But Gears of War is a very big franchise that like people who aren't even that familiar with games,
right.
they know it. And so for people coming to Gears of War 3 who maybe don't know how you have changed the Nasher
right.
throughout the process of the multiplayer beta. Right. You guys are also working on making it accessible to folks who don't know how to roll and jump over
right.
cover and all that stuff
right.
in the drop of a hat.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we didn't have in the beta, but we have going into ship, is we actually created a separate area for people who haven't really played that much. Mm-hmm. And so we actually will go back and look at what achievements do you have in Gears 1, what achievements do you have in Gears 2, how much did you play in the beta, and based on that we'll graduate you out of that area where you can't get in even if you wanted to, or if you haven't done any of those things, then you'll get to play in this area where with people like that. And so it's kind of, I refer to it as sort of minnows and sharks, is that if you're a minnow, you want to play with other minnows, but if you're a shark, we want you out of that pool to go play with the sharks. And then try to make
worked way better than the cookie dough metaphor.
I know, isn't it? I should have stuck with minnows and sharks earlier too. I'm not good at those. So.
It's all right.
But anyway, so it's that kind of thing. It's the same thing. Like I asked somebody who didn't play Gears 2, and I said, well, why not? And she said, well, you don't have aim assist. Like I like to play casual games, and when I pull the trigger, I want it to line up on the enemy, and you don't have that. And I'm like, wait, so the only thing stopping you from playing Gears right now is that I don't line up on the enemy when you press the left trigger? And she goes, yeah. And I'm like, done. And so in Gears, so in Gears 3 on casual in the campaign, when you pull the trigger, it'll line up on the enemies for you. Because it's just about, we feel like Gears 3 is the best version of Gears we've done, and it's the best one to get into. If you haven't played it, like you said, I think it's known and respected, but not everybody plays it.
Yeah.
And so what we want to do is say, like, hey, just because you feel like maybe you're a little bit behind on the story, because we've even got previously on Gears of War, cinematic
like
to catch people up.
Yeah.
We don't have Jack Bauer saying it, but it's it's that kind of thing. It's like, here, let's catch you up real quick in the story, because if you haven't played before, this is the version to get in.
Okay. Now, we've talked about sort of changes you guys have implemented as a result of feedback. That that aim assist one, boom, done.
Right.
Or inserting the sort of the barricades and the purchasable emplacements
right.
in Horde 2.0. Have there been stuff through the development process that you guys have had in there and you've been like, yeah, this is cool, we like this, but then feedback and player data has shown like that's not really working for you, and you had kind of had to part with something you liked about it, or these changes that are tougher to make?
Right. Well, one of the great things is we had the ability to play with Gears 2. So what people didn't know really near the end of when we were in the development, we decided to use Gears 2 as a test bed of balance changes for Gears 3. And so we were actually changing weapon values and things like that in the background to see how people played. And one of the things we wanted to try really early on was to try to make things a lot more lethal. And so we got it to sort of that Call of Duty sort of one bullet, one kill kind of feel to it. And we said, okay, hey, we're going to do this sort of highly lethal mode. Like, what do people think? And it's just it had its pros and cons. And at the end of the day, it was just something we initially, because you're going to something fresh yourself. You've been in it for 4 to 6 years, and you're like, hey, this is new, this is different. But then once you settled into it, and the people who haven't been boiling in it for 4 or 5 years, they're like, what the hell is this? And you're like, oh, our bad.
Right.
We were looking for a little change. Apparently, you're not. And so we kind of found this great middle ground though, where you actually notice the weapons are a little bit more lethal, because it can be frustrating for new players. That's the weirdness about things like Call of Duty, where it's like it's really hard on new players because they die instantly, but it's also really easy to get a kill because it only takes one bullet. So if you get that one shot off, you could actually succeed. Just trying to find that balance.
Well, it seems like you guys have, obviously it's a labor of love, and you've put a lot into it. Your presence here at Comic-Con, as we wrap up, you guys, you had an event last night, but you've got something else coming up that you wanted to mention.
We're doing tomorrow and Saturday. We're doing the Nerd HQ thing. We're doing a conversation and a signing, and it's a charitable thing. So to get in, it's like $20 to register, and it's very intimate. So it's going to be like there's like 3 or 4 cast members, and Cliff and